Hello. So this is the moment you've been waiting for. Finally, I got around to doing it. This is the 1992 Royal Rumble. This was on January the 19th, 1992, and it was held in Albany, New York. So the first match was a tag team match. It was the Orient Express, Kato and Tanaka, versus the New Foundation, which was Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Owen Hart. Good match. Owen looked brilliant. Jim Neidhart looked like Jim Neidhart looked, really. And the Orient Express were good. And they won. The New Foundation got the victory with the rocket launcher from the top rope. 1, 2, 3. They get the win. And yeah, a good start to the show. Next match was for the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Championship. And the newly crowned Intercontinental Champion, who's, if you've seen my videos before, won it 2 nights earlier, the Mountie defended against the number 1 contender, Roddy Piper. It was an okay match, nothing really out of the ordinary. Standard, really. But notable for really one thing, and that Piper won with the sleeper to become Intercontinental Champion and win his first ever WWF piece of hardware. He never won a title up to that point, so considering he'd been around since like the mid-80s, it's a bit shocking, really, that he didn't win anything in WWF until then. So that was great. He won the Intercontinental title, and of course he would then be entering the Royal Rumble later to see if he could make history and become the first man ever to hold both titles at the same time. We shall see what happened. Next match was another tag match, and it was Bo and Blake, the Beverly Brothers, managed by the Genius, taking on I can't even speak. Bushwhacker Luke and Bushwhacker Butch, along with their manager, Jameson, the Bushwhackers. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend and say this is the greatest tag team match I've ever seen, because it wasn't. It was okay. It had a good point. You know what you get when you watch a Bushwhacker match? Fun and entertaining, and that's what they were there for. They weren't there to show you technical mastery. They're not the Revival. Sorry, FTR. They're not. They're not. I'm trying to think of a really good. They're not the Usos. They're not the greatest tag team of all time. They're there. They're fun and entertaining. The Beverly Brothers, however, are about as bland as one of these biscuits I'm about to eat. They're bland. That's a Beverly Brother. Sorry to anybody who likes those kinds of biscuits. And I'm going to eat it because it's a biscuit and I eat all biscuits. But yeah, bland. The Bland Brothers, I like to call them. So yes, it was and the Bland Brothers actually won the match. They won by pinfall. But bizarrely, at the end of the match, Jameson came in. If you don't know who Jameson is, you're the lucky one, because he never got over. I don't know what he brought. I don't know why he was there, to be perfectly honest. He's not a manager. He's just like a mascot, really, I would say. It was just weird. But yeah, and then he marched around the ring, and then they kicked the Genius out, kicked him up at the bottom. But yeah, so Beverly's win. And the next match was for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships. And it was going to be the Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon, with their manager Jimmy Hart against Animal and Hawk, the defending champions. Disappointed is what I would say with this match. It could have been much more good. I mean, it's brawling because that's what Earthquake and Typhoon were good at, and Animal and Hawk were just like brutal. And, they were really hard hitting. But yeah, it was okay, but it was just, and the ending really annoyed me. It's a cheap finish. So Earthquake and Typhoon won the match by count out. And as we all know, you can't win a championship unless you're in WCW, and more on that at a later date, by count out. You can only win it by pinfall or submission. So at the end of the match, Earthquake and Typhoon somehow won by count out, even though both teams were outside the ring. But I think it's because Typhoon was like the legal man. But yeah, so they won the match by count out, and I'm parading around the ring with the championships. As we all know, they didn't win the titles. And it's just, to me, it was just a cheap finish where one of the teams could have gone over without hurting the other, personally. But that didn't happen. They decided to go down the road of having a cheap finish. And I don't really like cheap finishes. I don't like count out wins, losses. I don't like it, personally. But yeah, so there we are. So Earthquake and Typhoon won the match by count out, but Animal Hawk retained the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship. And then we come to the main event of the evening, which took about 10 minutes to get to because they started going back and forth with backstage interviews, and it took forever to get to the actual Rumble itself. So this, of course, is your main event of the evening, the 30-man over-the-top rope Royal Rumble, but this time, and for the first time in history, for the vacant World Wrestling Federation Championship. So just to pretend I'm Mean Gene, or the Fink, it is now time. No. So 2 men would start. Every 2 minutes, another entrant combatant would enter. And that would keep happening until all 30 entrants were there, whether they'd been eliminated or whether they'd not. And then once all 30 had entered the ring, the last person standing would become your new World Wrestling Federation champion. I'm not going to go through all the people who got eliminated and stuff, but I will go through how they entered. So the opening 2 were the British Bulldog and the $1 Million champion, Ted DiBiase. Now, previous Rumbles, DiBiase lasted like 45 minutes in 90, and then 30 minutes the year after, 91. And this Rumble, he lasted about a minute before he was eliminated by Davey Boy. And as he got eliminated, number 3 came out, and that, of course, is the Nature Boy. Woo! Ric Flair. So he came in. Number 4 was the only nasty boy in the match, Jerry Sachs. Number 5 was Haku. Number 6 was the newly singles wrestler in Shawn Michaels. And of course, Marty wasn't there because Shawn pushed him through a plate glass window in the barbershop. And still to this day, as I've said on previous videos, still to this day, it's shocking. 7 was technically Tito Santana, but for some bizarre reason at this point in time, his character was El Matador Tito Santana. So, yeah, basically the same guy with different colour tights on. 8 was the Barbarian. 9 was, well, a lot of people will know him as Kerry Von Erich, but for some reason when he was in WWF, they didn't call him Kerry Von Erich. They called him the Texas Tornado. Everyone knew it was Kerry Von Erich. Yeah, so there we are. 10 was Repo Man, who actually used to be part of Demolition. He was Smash in Demolition, and they repackaged him as Repo Man. 11 was Greg Ballantyne. 12, Nikolai Volkov. 13 was everyone's favourite law-abiding police officer, the Big Boss Man. 14 was Hercules. 15 was the new Intercontinental Champion, Rowdy Roddy Piper, who had a really good evening, by the way. 16 was, trust me, Jet the Snake Roberts. 17 was Hacksaw Jim Duggan. 18 was IRS. 19 was Jimmy Snooker. Now, getting to the last 11 entries, the last 10 entries. Don't mind me, I'm eating a Beverly Brother. What about Bo or Blake? Anyway, so they said on commentary that Undertaker and Hulk Hogan, because they were the last 2 champions pre to this, they would have preferential draws, so they'd be drawn between 20 and 30. Didn't quite work out for The Undertaker because he drew 20. Then the Macho Man Randy Savage came at 21, and he immediately ran after Jake Roberts, and who slithered outside the ring. I know it's an obvious snake reference, but he did. He just slid away in the corner. 22 was the Berserker. 23 was Virgil. Virgil? He could become World Wrestling Federation champion. I actually said that when I was watching it, and I'm just bizarre. 24 was Colonel Mustafa, formerly known as the Iron Sheik. 25 was the model Rick Martel. 26 was the immortal Hulk Hogan. 27 was Skinner. 28 was former WWF champion Sergeant Slaughter. 29 was Sid Justice, as he was then. And 30, and getting the best draw of the night, the Warlord. So, lots of it, lots of good things. To be honest with you, this is the greatest Rumble of all time for a reason, because it was amazing. The amount of former world champions in there, former Hall of Famers. Sadly, a lot of them have gone to the wrestling gods in the sky. I don't mean you, JBL. I mean like heaven, if you're wondering what I mean. But yeah, brilliant. The greatest Rumble. Definitely the best Rumble at that point in time. And maybe a Rumble down the years that were better after that. But this, for me, is still the best Rumble. It had everything. Drama. Flair going over like an hour, which is just like amazing. For those days, the record was, they said it in commentary, was Martel. He's like 53, 55 minutes, something like that. So yeah, very, very impressive. So it came down to the final four, which was Sid, Justice, the Macho Man Randy Savage, the Immortal Hulk Hogan, and the real world's champion at the time, Ric Flair. So it came down to the final four. Basically, Ric Flair needed Sid Justice, and Macho Man Randy Savage was eliminated. They were hanging over the top rope in the corner. So Savage would not become another to win the title again at that point. Down to the final three. So Hogan and Flair were battling. Got to the side of the ring, like middle bit. And yeah, this is where it gets interesting. Sid was just standing there for ages in the corner, and he was staring, and he was staring, and he was staring, and again, he was staring. Did I mention he was staring? Yeah, because he was doing a lot. There was a lot of staring. And he came over, and he looked at Hogan, and he went, why not? And he eliminated him over the top rope. And then they started jaw-jacking, and like Flair was sort of like over there, like trying to remember where he is, who he was, and why he was there. And then Hogan, in a very heelish way, pulled on to Sid Justice's arm. Yes, he did. Yes, he wasn't a good guy. Yeah, don't let him fool you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let him fool you. He was a naughty boy in those days, and he pulled on Sid's arm. And Ric Flair saw this and went, I wonder what I'll do here. And what he did was he eliminated Sid Justice, and that's right. Ric Flair became your new World Wrestling Federation champion. Mainly the aftermath was Hogan and Sid having a massive stare down, and wonder where that will lead. And then they went to backstage and did the infamous interview where Ric Flair said, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest day of my life. Because he won the World Wrestling Federation Championship. And he said himself there, it was the greatest title in the world. And it still is. So, well, you could all debate amongst yourselves about that last comment, but the World Wrestling Federation Championship is the most important wrestling world title in the world. And that's the bottom line, because Will said so. Now, there we are, really. So I hope you've enjoyed my review. I thoroughly enjoyed the Royal Rumble 1992, and there'll be more TV, pay-per-view, and ramblings from me very, very soon. So I bond you a fond farewell, because I do it better than anyone. And just remember, I am the best in the biz. You've been wonderful. I've been Will. And I'll see you ringside.